with the fear thing, what what do you do to overcome fear during a round of golf? I'm of the opinion that pretty much every mental game issue stems from fear on some. I think fear is at the bottom of all of it.
All right.
So, and whether or not that's true, I don't know. But for you, what scares you when you play, and then how do you overcome that, or how have you overcome that?
I think going back to when I was younger, I was much more fearful on the golf course. And the fear was basically if I hit a bad shot or if I have a bad pattern today, then I'm ruined. Like if I
Mm,
snap hook the first one off the tee as a kid, I'm like, okay, well, I don't know what I'm going to do today because that's my pattern. Whereas now I'm not fearful of those things because I snap hook one off the tee. I'm like, okay, I can figure this out throughout the round. You know,
mm,
my ability to do that might vary from day to day, but I can figure it out. Never stuck with the pattern.
right.
I do feel fear though on the golf course. Much less so now though. And when I feel it, I know what my patterns tend to be. You know, I get cautious. My body slows down. The hands are more likely to overtake, so I'm more likely to miss it left.
Uh,
So whenever I sense this fear happening, I have one of two strategies. Either I say, right, I'm just going to commit to hitting this hard. So, you know, I'm going to go feel the fear and do it anyway, that book
uh-huh.
title. Or I'm just going to, if the fear is, like if I feel like it's to the point where I'm not going to be able to control my body, you know, we've all been in those fight or flight states where we just cannot commit to something. And we know that no matter how much I tell myself, I'm going to commit to this, we're not as in control of our bodies as we think we are. So in that level of fear, I might be like, okay, this ball is probably going left based on my knowledge of my patterns when I feel this. So I'm going to do something to make it go less left. So I'm going to open the face at address. I'm going to aim at the right side of the green
Yeah,
and yeah, just get through this. So those are my two
yeah.
strategies. So the other thing I try to do as well, if I find myself getting too fearful, I think a lot of fear can come from taking on a task that doesn't match your ability. So
Mm,
maybe, you know, an example of that might be going 230 yards over water and you know deep down you know this has got a 50% chance of coming out. You have a right to be fearful there. You know,
mm,
there's millions of years of evolution have gone into creating these mechanisms in us. It's telling you, it's giving you a message, don't do it.
yeah.
Um, but obviously that can come through sometimes when it's not the case. Like you could be a tour pro and you could know that, well, I can get this over 95% of the time, but why am I feeling so fearful of this? And obviously it's the situation itself. Um, Often
Huh.
my tactic around that is to widen my target area. So
Mm,
I know there's an adage in golf and other sports like aim to as small a point as you can, and aim small, miss small is
right.
the thing for that. And I don't find that to be true always. For some people it is, but I perform better when I say I expand my target area. I say, okay, there's my target, middle of the fairway, but I'm going to allow myself to include the right rough and the left rough, and anywhere in that area is going to be acceptable for me.
Yeah.
And that kind of frees me up then. I feel a lot less fear with that. You know, if there's out of bounds on the left, I might bias that big pattern a little bit more to the right as well. So,
Mm,
yeah, I think for me, understanding expectations as well has helped. You know, understanding as a kid, I would be angry at myself if I hit the right side of the fairway. So it was a super accurate driver, and I honestly I'd thin it a little bit, and it hit the right side of the fairway. It wasn't
yeah.
perfect, but now I'm more like, well, anything down there, even if I hit it in the rough, if I'm like, it's safe, it's fine. It's just these are things that happen. You know,
Mm,
I tell people like actually an 8 finger target area, 4 fingers either side is pretty pro level with a driver. And when people see that, they're super surprised and they think, well, I can hit that and it's still an okay shot. And I'm like, yeah, some of those are going to be very close to out of bounds as well, but it's just what it is. There's only a
okay.
certain level of control we can have. Unless you're Mo Norman, you're not going to be piping it down a 10-yard alleyway each time. The pros have, what does Scott Forster say, like a 60-yard, 70-yard target area effectively. People are very surprised at how offline pros can hit it. So understanding that can help alleviate some fear. It's like, oh, I don't have to be perfect to play this game. Using good strategy, like I said, I always say to people, if there's out of bounds on the left, make sure you're at least 4 fingers away from it. And they're like, but that puts me aiming at the right side of the fairway. I'm like, yeah. But then I'm going to miss more shots to the right. And I'm like, yeah. But that's not going to be in the out of bounds. If you're chipping out from the ref, that's a hell of a lot better than being out of bounds. So we have to play these things.
Yeah. Making mistakes more acceptable, I think, is the way to alleviate fear. And I think that's what you're describing is, okay, if I shift my pattern away from out of bounds, then I can make a mistake and still be fine, right? So you lower the consequences of a mistake, right? So therefore, there's less to be afraid of. Therefore, I will probably not swing as afraid. So that's why widening, opening up, I think helps. That makes a lot of sense.
And that applies in everything as well. Like someone who fears the shank. So you can say shank to me all day. I could stand over a ball and you could go shank, 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 shank. It doesn't bother me at all because my pattern is nowhere near a shank and I can adjust it. But actually an interesting party trick is I can make a backswing and someone calls out shank or toe and I can change it and hit that. Not super precisely, but just to show the power of intent.
Yeah.
But, someone who does fear a shank, someone's like, don't even mention the word to me. Their pattern is heel biased. Right. Like their good shots are on the heel. And so they often don't have an inconsistency error. Again, it's just, look, your pattern, it's very rare, maybe at 1 in 100 person who I would see hit center, random 20 millimeter shank. It just doesn't happen that often at all. It's there. I'm not going to deny it, but most people are like a shanker is going to be 15 millimeters heel every single time, and then it shifts another 8 millimeters, which is actually normal human variation, and that's where the shank pops out. If their average was more centered, just like you've got the out of bounds on the left and nothing on the right, centering things in a more acceptable area. Same thing, center your shot pattern on the face in an acceptable area. Center your ground contact in an acceptable area. So, you've seen the Divot Board, the training aid. So it basically highlights, it's a better version of the concrete drill. It's not going to damage your club. And yeah, if I hit 100 shots on there, I'm going to have inch in front, inch behind. It's going to be that kind of range, that kind of spread. The average is right on the ball. My bad ones are an inch behind, bad ones are an inch in front. You might get another player who's their front side of their pattern is on the ball. So their best shots are as good as mine. And then their back pattern or their middle pattern is 1 inch behind. Again, it's all right. It's not bad. But the backside of their pattern is 2 inches behind, and then they lay the sod over it and say, I'm inconsistent. And I would say, well, no, I've got a 2-inch range. You've got a 2-inch range. Right. In terms of consistency of inputs, it's the same. It's the location of the input that's the issue there.
Yeah.
So yeah, centering your shot patterns, centering the face contact patterns, centering all of these things. You can just say the pros are usually, in terms of consistency, they have a good average pattern. So they're centering everything in the right place. So center of the sweet spot, center of ground contact. So they've got a good center of their pattern. They also do have tighter ranges. I'm not going to lie. Like a pro is going to be more consistent as well as better. And then they're also using techniques that have higher margins for error. So if there is any variability in the machine, they can deal with it. So there's like 3 forms of consistency there. And then when they add on, not every pro has this, but when they add on strategic consistency as well, like a Scotty Scheffler, aiming for the middle of the green, that's another layer of consistency. So Scotty Scheffler has all of them. And that's when you become consistent, truly consistent. And then when you add on, there's the 5th layer of consistency, the ability to adapt when things go wrong, which is my forte. then those are you've got so many layers of consistency there. And I am super consistent as a player. I can pick up a club once a month, and last year I played to a +3 with the yips. We won't talk about that, but actually maybe we will. But yeah, in terms of my long game is like a +5, playing once every 2 weeks,
Yeah.
something like that. So, and I attribute that to my ability to adjust. I can wake
Uh-huh.
up, I can say I haven't played for 2 weeks, let's hit a few balls. Okay, everything's fat, toe and left. All right, I can adapt. Boom, let's go out.
Yeah.
So my ability to do that is what's key. Whereas when I was a kid, I'd have to practice 40 hours a week, because that's the other way around it. Is if you hit enough balls, you will unconsciously tend to veer towards the right thing. That's what the pros do,
Right.
but not everybody will. I'm sure
Yeah.
that listeners here will say, well, I put so much time and effort. I practiced 10 hours a week last year, every single week, and I got worse or didn't improve at all. So yeah, if you don't have the right processes in place, more practice doesn't always make you better.